One of the key factors that sets a truly great band aside from the rest for me is that the second you hear their guitar or the vocals, you know exactly who the band is and you just want to turn it up more. For me, that's the case with every song from X-Ray Spex, and they remain one of the most criminally overlooked bands in the entire history of music. It almost goes without saying that rock music, and punk rock specifically, have been dominated by male performers for nearly their entire history. And yet once you hear the sound of this female-fronted band, it's obvious they were worlds ahead of their peers. While they're not an all-female band, the sound of X-Ray Spex is built around the vocals and lyrics of Polystyrene and the saxophone playing of Laura Logic. And to tell you the truth, they are one of the greatest musical pairings of all time. It's the way their songs have such a distinctive tone to them, as Laura Logic's saxophone playing fits perfectly into these high-octane, angst-ridden songs. And when you hear it, there's a clear connection to the Stooges. I mean, there just aren't that many bands that can perfectly work a saxophone solo into the middle of a punk rock song. Because here, it's one of the core instruments, it's not just a backing sound, and it works great. And in the late 70s, when punk rock was already becoming very formulaic, X-Ray Spex did everything they could to purposely be different. And this resulted in, among other things, their flawless 1978 record, Germ-Free Adolescence. The guitar riffs on all of their songs are killer, as Jack Airport strikes that perfect balance between chaotic and catchy. And he never sacrifices the overall quality of the composition just to make it sound dirtier. Because honestly, he doesn't need to. It sounds perfectly authentic as is. But to be honest, the greatest element of X-Ray Spex has to be the vocals and lyrics of Polystyrene. And there are few performers from any style from any era that can stand alongside her. She just has this voice that becomes instantly, uniquely hypnotic, as even when these songs become a bit more relaxed in terms of tempo, her aim and her drive don't diminish in the least. The entire time seamlessly switching between singing and screaming, making you just want to turn these songs up louder and louder. Along with this, in most of the lyrics, she's speaking to pretty much every area of the world of women, but at the same time, anyone can relate to these songs. Whether she's taking on body image issues, commercialism, or the overall artificial nature of society, these songs were deadly accurate, and they remain just as applicable more than 3 decades later. I mean, when they start talking about posers both on stage and within the punk rock scene at the time, it's really obvious how aware of their own scene they were. And this sort of keeping it real and just calling it what it is vaults them far beyond any of their contemporaries. You want a feminist anthem? This band has tons of them, and they aren't these passive calls saying please. They are, word for word, an up yours at the system. I mean, come on, the opening lines of their first single, Oh Bondage Up Yours, remains one of the greatest rallying cries in the entire history of music. There's just never been another band as dynamic, creative, and pioneering as X-Ray Spex were. And they really paved the way for the entire Riot Girl movement. And they proved once again that women can rock just as hard as anyone else. A pulverizing rhythm section, screaming guitar lines, killer sax solos, and everything that makes Polystyrene a true music legend. That's really all you need for true music magic, and when you combine them all together, it's really obvious why I absolutely love X-Ray Spex.